I'm Lance with Ultimate Canine, and today we are going to go over our next crate in our series of crate reviews. This is a standard wire crate. There are many different makes, models, manufacturers, but they're all pretty similar. One of the pros to this is that it can fold up and you can carry it around with you. It has a carrying handle here, and that it can just be broken down. So to set it up, you just flip these clips down, fold it out, pull the door out, and then it has these latches here. I guess they're not really latches, but they're more like hooks, and it's a little bit of a good time. And you got to pull out the front, put the hook in over, make sure the sides are hooked in, and then go to the back. And this is a double door. This is a small, and I've used these type of crates for a long time. Now, the problem is, one of the problems with this crate is where you put it together, you have these hooks, and that's what keeps it together. So dogs do break out of these, and where they break out is actually where the crate comes together. So where the crate comes together, you have latches, and these are these hooks. And the dogs, what they do is they try to get out. They don't break out through the door typically. They'll push on the crate, and then these hooks will come undone, and then they'll start to get out the side, or they'll pull in through the side here. Now, when I used these, I remedied that, but it made the crate uncollapsible. So I would take zip ties, and I would zip tie every few inches. I would zip tie the door shut that I did not use, because you see, this side door is not very strong. So I would zip tie that shut, and once I zip tied it, you have these little brackets here, and these are supposed to make it sturdy. I would electrical tape these, and that sounds like a lot of work, but I had Malinois and Dutch Checkers in here, and I didn't want them to get out or to hurt themselves. I never really had a problem. I used these crates for years. I like them because they get great ventilation. It's not going to get any hotter in there than it is. It doesn't protect from the sun, though, if you were to have these crates outside. The sun's just going to be beating down on your dog. Now, another thing they have with this crate is they have this pan inside. Now, this pan has a little latch here, and it's kind of a pain too to get out. But what it's for is if a dog makes a mess in there, you're supposed to be able to undo it, pull it out, and then clean it. Now, this pan here is pretty cheap and flimsy. They usually get destroyed. So this one here actually has a crack in it right there. I don't know if you can see it. And this crate has only been used very sparingly. I mean, it hasn't been used in a long time. And then this guy's supposed to go back in here. You put this back in, and you reverse flip it here, and lock it in. And that's how you're supposed to be able to deal with the crate pan. The pan moves around. It doesn't fit very snug or tight, so it's very easy for a dog to get it up and start chewing on it and mangle it. So I usually would cut a piece of rubber up, a horse stall mat to form, and put it in the bottom of that in the bottom. So I made a lot of adjustments, but I didn't have too many problems with these. You just have to reinforce them. They range from like $30 to $170 depending on what size you get. And for a lot of dogs, they're okay. But if you have a dog that's kind of strong, I wouldn't really risk using this, because eventually, if you don't reinforce it like I was saying, they're going to get out. The door actually isn't too bad. It overlaps here about 1/4 of an inch. So the door isn't too bad, and it's got, you know, four anchor points at this side. So the door is never really the problem. It's how they made this kennel capable of folding up that makes it weak. So those are the weak points. Strong points: has 2 doors. It's got great ventilation. If you have a crazy dog, they can destroy this kennel pretty quick. So, you know, just have to do a lot of reinforcement to it. The nice thing about the reinforcement techniques I talked about is they're really cheap. Zip ties are like $2 for 50. and a roll of electrical tape is pretty cheap. So again, I would zip tie the door shuts you don't need. I would zip tie all the corners, and then I would electrical tape the reinforcements on top so you know they're not going to go anywhere and move. But the downside of that is it makes it unmovable, or you can't take it down and then carry it like a suitcase like it's meant to, but who really moves their crate around that much? And you have to reinforce the pan, which a horse stall mat or a rubber mat at Tractor Supply, they're not exactly cheap either. They're probably, they're like $60 to $100 and something, depending on how big you get them and how thick you get them. So not a bad crate overall, but for a really strong dog, I would recommend to stay away from this crate and get something that's a little bit more durable, like a Roughland or something of that nature. Thanks for watching. Another downside to this crate is when you're driving along, if this is in your vehicle, it's loud. It's super loud. It vibrates. And yes, if a dog is in there, the pan isn't going to vibrate. Well, we're going to take that out. That will drive you crazy. It will certainly drive you crazy. That's another reason why the zip ties and the wire ties help a lot. They will dumb that down a little bit. They will make it a little bit better. And the more you do, the better it will become. But that is a very, that's a very annoying thing when you're cruising down the road and your crate won't stop, and especially if you have 2 or 3 of them. So something to consider. All right. Another good thing about this crate is most of them typically come with a potty training divider, and it just hooks in. It's a metal piece, a wire metal piece. It hooks in, and you can adjust it to how much room your dog needs as they grow. That's one of the best benefits to this crate. Now, the wire piece, you got to make sure that it's reinforced a little bit so they can't grab it and move it around. But yeah, that's a really solid part, and it's a really good potty training piece with this crate. Now, the most dangerous thing that I see with this crate is these metal hooks that secure it once it's folded correctly. It's in place, so when a dog tries to break out, they typically go through the sides, and I talked about that before. So they get this undone here, and then they'll force their way out, and they'll start pushing out the side here. And the problem is when they back in, these hooks will get hung up on a collar. If you have a collar on, and you should never leave your dog unattended with any collar on in their crate or enclosure, but if they do, they can get hung up on that, and then they panic. And that's what leads to the problem, because they'll get halfway out and they can't get their shoulders out, and then they'll get hooked up and they'll try to back in, and then they'll start to, panic and make things very dangerous for themselves. So that's one of the main reasons too why I want to make sure to reinforce those edges. And on all these that I had, I actually took a pliers and bent these tabs all the way around before I wire tied and then electrical taped it. So a few more points to ponder.